Welcome, one and all, to the Success Curious podcast. It's your man, Andy, here, and I am absolutely delighted. I've got to be careful what I say because the person that has joined me today is way more sharp and way more intelligent than me. So I've got to be very, very careful, team. I have Lauren Cassimatis with me, who's the principal lawyer, director, and founder of Gallant Law, which is a criminal law firm specializing in everything to do with crime and criminal activities and all that sort of stuff. Lauren is she's also a tremendous advocate within her industry for women within the legal profession. Just making sure and really having that sort of mother hen sort of apron around making sure that their mentality and the culture for women in the legal profession is as good as and can be improved as much as it can be. She is a mom. She is an absolute superstar. And one thing that's really, really jumped out at me when it comes to Lauren is she's not your stereotype, which is always fun. Lauren Cassimatis, welcome to the Success Curious podcast. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you for having me and for that intro. I don't know how I can beat that, so thanks.
Hey, look, the honor is all mine. I was doing my homework on you, and I really started to. This is absolutely a compliment. I start questioning one or two of my own life decisions. I'm like, okay, this is a human that has been tremendously successful, whilst at the same time still running that sort of not standard or that you've still gone along that traditional path of being a mom, having kids and all that sort of stuff. And yet you have still managed to turn out as a tremendously successful person in a real high pressure, vicious at times, white collar world, right? Before we crack on, like, how do you balance mom and lawyer and business owner and advocate and all the different other bits and bobs that you do? How the hell do you do it?
The short answer is I don't know, and I do enjoy a glass of wine. No, what I've learned is it all comes down to your values and your purpose. I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but when you identify what certain facets of your life mean to you and what you hope to gain for yourself and others in your life, it makes it a lot easier to then develop that balance or I guess program or structure. So for me, my most important thing to me, I'll list them: my clients, my love of advocacy and representation of vulnerable community members, my kids, and having a great lifestyle. I enjoy holidaying. I mean, most people do, but I enjoy travel. I've always aspired to have a great life for my children, for me, to be able to enjoy the finer things in life. To achieve for success for me means tangible as much as intangible. So I think about my purpose in terms of my client is to be a voice for them, to really advocate for them when others wouldn't, for not only the courts but the world to understand what's going on for criminal clients and be that true, I guess and be repetitive, but be a real voice for them. In terms of my career, I've always been ambitious, so I've never wanted to let go of that. When I became a mother, I realized just how disconnected I felt from my profession. And that is part of the reason why I developed Connecting Lawyer Mums, which is the community you spoke about. And in that, I really struggled with maternity leave. I mean, I love my children. I love the time I spent with them. But I wasn't happy going for a walk around the park every day with a coffee in my hand. I was missing being with my colleagues, being in court. And so that really signified for me that my job means a lot to me as well, as much as my family. And then I think about, well, what benefits or what value does my career add to my family? And that's being able to provide for them and give them an education and worldly experiences and culture. So that's my way of answering it, in that when I identify what's important to me, I'm then able to allocate adequate time to all of them. And one doesn't sort of neglect the other or take over the other. I can actually compartmentalize. So, for example, on the weekends, I realized that I was working too much and therefore not giving my children enough time. And I thought, well, why am I bothering trying to be successful and earn all these pleasures for my kids and then not even have the time to give it to them. So I now make time for my kids on the weekends. And then during the week, I know how to make sure I'm properly communicating with my clients and properly represent them and preparing their cases. So yeah, when you get to your purpose, I think it makes it easier to know just how much time and effort you allocate to each area of your life.
No, it makes sense. It's actually been something that I've been marinating on a lot recently, and finally the penny dropped for me literally over the last couple of months, 3 months. So many people will say to me, like, you're doing so many things, like, what you do so many things, I can't keep up with you, blah, 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 blah. And I finally managed to be able to turn around and be able to say, because I've been able to define it for myself, there's no, I do one thing, I just do it in a whole bunch of different ways. And that makes it really easy, right? It's always me. It's just me in different formats. But it's taken me ages to put my finger on it, because have you felt this before, Lauren, where you feel like you're at various stages, you feel like you're a bit of a jack of all trades and master of none? Like, and if you include parenting and all that sort of stuff, right? Because obviously parenting is the most important job we've got. But sometimes you feel, because you are spreading yourself like we do, you can sometimes feel average at a bunch of stuff because you're not being able to focus on it wholly and solely. But we know that's not us, right?
Absolutely. And you sometimes feel like you're this ping pong ball just bouncing around everywhere, trying to cater for everyone and do everything. And you're right, when you're stretching yourself too thin, or you're covering, as you said, trades that you might not be a jack at, I think it is really important to hone in on what matters the most to you, what actually brings you joy, and what are you actually good at. So yeah, you said it right in that it's just you, but in different walks of life or different identities, but you're still sort of doing the same thing, which is contributing to your passion. So I have done that. I have made that mistake where I've tried to take on far more than I can chew, and I've been available to everyone and anything, and I've tried to take on all sorts of things. You're burning yourself out, and you're not doing whoever you're trying to keep happy justice either.
No, for sure, man, for sure. Look, before we crack on, we've heard a bit about you already, but for those that don't know who you are, just give us a quick elevator spiel on who you are, your career path today, and what got you to this point.
Sure. So I have been practicing criminal law for 20 years now, and I got my specialization in 2014. So close to 11 years ago now, I became an accredited specialist after I sat some intensive exams and some panels and satisfied them that I knew enough to be a specialist. I didn't see myself starting off as a lawyer. What I actually had a passion for was architecture and fashion. I love design, and I saw myself headed down that path. But I sort of, in my last years of high school, I saw my parents go through a divorce. I saw the way the courts treated my dad. I felt that there was a power imbalance, or sort of a lack of equitable justice when it came to family law proceedings for women and men. And that really triggered this urge in me to contribute to the legal or the justice system in terms of protecting people's rights when they're in the family law courts. So I studied legal studies. I then moved on to do some volunteer work in various family law clinics. I then got admitted as a lawyer, practicing family law. But I started to also do some criminal law work and found it incredibly rewarding and fascinating, in that learning so much about people's lives and their psychological makeup and the amount of disadvantage that people have gone through, that just, for me, it was a no-brainer. I decided I was going to be a criminal lawyer. So I still did family law here and there, but my main focus was criminal law. So again, exclusively practiced in that now for 20 years. I get to see a side of the world that a lot of people don't. And people ask me, why do you do this? Why do you represent the dark side, another phrase I've heard. For me, I don't believe that anyone is bad. I believe that people might do bad things either because of an error or because of really dark chapter in their life. A lot of my clients are good people that, they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, never misbehaved before. And then something's just happened, another tragedy in their life. They've gone bankrupt, or they've suffered a really traumatic death in the family, or gambling, or some of my clients have had, a late onset in dementia or disability. So there's a dark chapter that hits them, and for whatever reason, maybe they're not as resilient, or they don't have the right support around them, or they're just, sometimes in states of depression, you can't think rationally either. They commit a crime. And so I learned that these people are good people that need someone to hold their hand and take them through to the other end where they can focus on life after court. And the same goes for a lot of my clients that have never really had a privileged life, or have come from, such a state of disadvantage where they were either abused as kids, or witnessed alcoholism or domestic violence, or didn't get an education, they're illiterate, or they were homeless. So again, I feel that all people deserve a voice, and why should we think that anyone's bad? And we focus on this eye for an eye punishment. In this community, we're so fixated on punishing people, when really we should be thinking about how can we get them back on track so they can contribute to the community, contribute to their families again. So where I'm at now is in 2019, I created my own firm because I saw a bit of a gap in terms of how clients were being treated, whether it came from a lack of respect or communication. And I also saw a gap in that there weren't many holistic legal services out there that also focused on protecting people's reputations, careers, families, finances. So I created Gallant Law with that in mind. And that was just after I finished maternity leave with my second child. So just before I started the firm, I also created Connected Law Mums, and that came out of, feeling again disconnected or feeling a bit despondent. And rather than, I've never had a victim mentality, I'm always a fixer. So I thought, how am I going to fix this? And I thought, I'm just going to reach out to other women that I know were going through similar experiences, and just see if they wanted to start a little group where we could catch up, talk about life as lawyers, parents, working women. I know a handful of lawyers were going through discrimination at work because they were working part-time, or they'd taken mat leave. Some were missing out on work or cases, again, because they'll be questioned as women or as parents. So that was sort of the motivation to create Connecting Law Mums. And before you knew it, where are we, about 7 years later, we now got 9,000 members around Australia, including men, including non-parents, just people looking for a good community that they can be each other's cheerleaders, they can navigate life, navigate being that parent, managing the juggle. And really at the heart of it are these events we run where there's networking, and they love it because it's a natural form of networking. It's not forced. It's just people that are truly like-minded, that want to come together and look after each other and have a laugh and just be themselves. And we have speakers as well that cover various themes that our members want to learn more about. So we've got that event coming up, Sexy in the City, where that came out of women coming to me saying, how do I navigate dating as a single parent? Or, I'm in my 50s now, I don't feel as good as I used to. How do I even have an intimate life again, or explore that part of me? So we have so many members sharing that they love the group so much that they trust us enough to share their experiences as a parent and as a professional. And so that motivates me to keep going with this community and the events and help my colleagues as well as my clients. Very long answer, sorry.
No, but look, I didn't want to stop you because it's a fascinating trip. I mean, you have taken on a world that very few would have the bottle to do. And I'm saying that in a few different ways. Like, firstly, the criminal law thing. No, exactly who wants to advocate for the bad guy, sort of that sort of side of things. So that takes a heck of a lot of nerve. And I said this to you before we started. the spine, I used a different word before, but the spine that you have for setting up a community within an industry that, and every industry has this, so it's not like we're shit canning the legal profession, right? In any way, shape, every industry has this, where there are natural discriminatory factors, right? There are. I mean, it's just a fact of. And the fact that you've had the nerve and the bottle to really not take it on like a crusade, but to provide a backstop, a community, a comfort blanket around those people that are in the legal profession that need that sort of thing, because it takes a lot of effort to become a lawyer, right? So when you're in it, it'll be very, very difficult to let it go, despite how much personal travesty and issues and concern and hurt you must feel from time to time, right? I'm sure that would be the case because it takes so much effort. You have to be so passionate to get into it in the first damn place, right? So it'd be really difficult to let it go, irrespective of whether you're being discriminated or harassed or whatever, right? So it's just truly wonderful that you've decided that to start all that up, and it's just amazing to see, because more people need to be like that. More people need to because lots of people talk. You know, I'm sure you will have come across loads of people that talk about doing stuff, doing good for the community, doing something to benefit. They never do it. Very, very few actually make shit happen. So all credit to you. Now, before I crack, because I've taken some notes and there's some things that I want to chat to you about. But before we crack on, I always ask this of all of my guests. I always believe that success, it's got a few different elements to it. You know, success, connection, influence, and happiness, and they all interlink in a wonderful harmony where one can't survive without the other. I'm really interested to hear your take on what a successful human is, particularly given the perspective that you do have on life that not many people do.
Yeah, good question. I think success is different for everyone. I saw an author, so terrible. Andrew Griffiths, there's an author in Tasmania. I saw him present, and he was saying how when he first started his career, he had in his mind that he wanted to buy a Maserati, and he kept visiting his accountant saying, "Am I ready to budget and buy this Maserati?" And the accountant said, "Absolutely not." And so it was his goal. And finally, he attended the accountant and he said, "Am I ready now?" And he said, "Yep, go for it." And so he went along to one of the, I think somewhere on Swan Street, and he saw the Maserati, sat in it. He was contemplating buying it. And then he realized it wasn't actually the car that he wanted. It was just the ability to be able to buy a car worth that much. And he thought, you know what, with this money, I'd rather travel. I'd just rather explore the world. I don't really need this car. I'm happy to downgrade, or use that word loosely, to something 100 grand, not $500,000. But he was proud that he could purchase a car worth that much, and that was actually his end goal. So he said for him, he thought success was buying the car, but in fact, it was just being able to have that financial freedom to make that choice. Did he want to spend it on a car? Did he want to spend it on adventures and go around the world? And I'd always remember that, because it's true. We all have such a different idea of success. Some of us, it can be material things, or for me, I know I want to put my kids through private education. I want to be able to invest in property for them so they've got some financial security when they're adults. I think a lot about their needs, and of course you've got to remember your own, and because it's important to look after number one, because how else can you look after everyone else? So, what else would I like? Well, I love art. I love fashion. For me, a win is being able to buy that outfit I've been eyeing off. And of course, travel and fine dining. I do love the finer things. But also it's not losing sight of what also brings you true joy. So if I won 100 mil tomorrow on the lotto, would I give up what I do for work? No. I would feel lonely. I would feel like I'm letting down my clients, my purpose. So for me, it's a combination. Success for me is being able to live the life that brings you pure joy and is in alignment with your values. So if that's protecting the community as well as being able to enjoy fine things in life, then for me, I know that's my definition of success. And for others, it might be being able to have an early retirement, or again, being able to travel or just cruise through life. So I know I'm being repetitive, but I think, again, measuring success is based on what you actually value, what brings you true sense of joy and brings you true state of peace. And I think when you've hit that mark, when you are no longer, it's hard to say, because when you're an ambitious person, I don't think you ever are content. Like, there's always a new goal you set for yourself. I know I do that, yeah. So when you've hit a mark and you've gone, you know what, I just achieved that. And I think it's really important to celebrate the wins. I think a lot of us, just before this recording, we're talking about being self-deprecating, and I know I am. So sometimes you feel like you haven't done enough and you critique what you've done and could you've done it differently. However, it's really important to celebrate the wins for real. So when we do achieve that car that we wanted to buy, or we finally get to enroll our kids in that school we wanted them to, or we even managed to get a day off and go play golf all day or whatever it is, celebrate it. I was actually able to achieve this. I did this. And then move on to the next goal, or sit back and enjoy whatever you've got in your mind.
I love that you talked. There was a hell of a lot of stuff that was around the material, but then you just really ended up bringing it back to success is brought through a life that brings you pure joy. And because you're right, success is defined by a whole bunch of different parameters for a whole bunch of different people, but the ultimate end to it all is that joy piece, right? And that's not something that can be defined for anyone by anyone. It's a depth. It's one of those deeper levels of emotion, right? Joy it's almost an extreme word, but we don't think of it as extreme because it's positive. Whereas like desperate or things like that, they're seen as extreme. But joy is a positively extreme word, because sometimes we can be happy or glad or proud, but they are nowhere near joy.
No, I agree. It's like a real deep belly feeling.
It's visceral, right? You feel joy and you feel it in every square inch of your body, of your being, of your heart, your head, your mind, your belly, your soul. So you feel joy, you felt joy, right? And that's it. Like, you don't have to articulate it. It's probably why you were struggling to articulate it a little bit there yourself, because it's not something that can really be defined. It's a thing. It's just a nondescript thing that you just sense. And I love that. I really, really do like that. Now, you've mentioned your purpose and you've sort of alluded to it. If you could put your purpose into a sentence or two, what would it be?
Oh, geez. I think my purpose is I like to raise awareness in the community. So my purpose is maybe enlightening people and connecting them or bringing them together. So as a criminal lawyer, I want to enlighten the community as to what triggers crime and how to best address it, and how to give people another chance. And that's what I mean by that connection piece. In terms of what I do for lawyer mums and other professionals, again, it's making the community aware that aware of what is actually going on for people that are juggling kids and work, all genders, that we can add value to various professions, industries, workplaces. For example, sometimes there's a fear that if you're a working parent, your mind's too much on your kids and you're going to take up and run to childcare when they're sick, or, you're not going to be that committed to your work. You're not going to stay loyal because you're going to take mat leave, whatever it is. I want to enlighten the community to know that, in fact, a lot of us working mothers, for example, work harder than ever. And in fact, we're like octopuses with multiple tentacles that can handle so much. We multitask, we time manage, we can do so much. So again, I see my purpose as awakening the community to negate certain stereotypes or stigmas and connect people. Yep, I love bringing people together, creating networks, events, structures for them to be able to also succeed in their lives.
Yeah, you're almost like, it almost feels like you enjoy being something of a lighthouse in the world, right? Where you're sort of you're like a guide when people are going through choppy waters, hopefully bringing him into land safely. That's the sort of sense that I get from you, which is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, and it screams with everything you do that that you are that, you like being that beacon of hope for people, which is again, it takes a particular person to be able to do it. Plenty of people want to say like they like to be like that, but you go out there and you just do it, which is incredible. Now, I wanted to dig into your original thing, which was architecture and design and so on and so forth, because that says to me that you have got and you enjoy having a creative type of mind, right? Now, I've talked about this maybe once or twice in the past, where some people can feel a bit pigeonholed by their skill sets and whatnot. But when you was talking about your history there, and you went from a very creative space to the legal profession, and in my mind, very interesting, went, okay, well, I can see why her creative mind would find appeal in the legal profession, because you would have to get creative, I would have thought, when trying to get people out of holes or out of drama or into less drama, shall we say, with all the bits and bobs that you do. So in terms of your career, and obviously with the events that you set up and the community that you set up and all that sort of jazz, do you feel that through the stuff that you do, your creative mind is satisfied?
That's a really good question. You know what? About halfway through my legal career, it didn't feel satisfied. So in fact, I went to Melbourne School of Fashion and became a qualified fashion designer. I was doing night school. Yeah, so I'm actually a qualified designer, but then I didn't really find the time to ever launch a label. So I set it to the side. But you're right. What I found with being a criminal lawyer is that you have to be strategic when you're preparing a case. You're thinking about the case theory and the direction of the case. It comes down to strategy, and you need a creative brain to be strategic. You need to think about all the avenues open. If you go down this route, is that going to cause more issues for your clients? I said earlier that I think holistically about their future. So I not only think about the outcome they'll get there and then for that case, but what does it mean for their careers? Does it mean that there goes a whole, lifetime of career finance, or they'll never be able to get a home loan to purchase that home with bad credit? I think about all those things. I think it takes a creative person to go there. Also, in terms of strategy, you also got to be really good at improvising and thinking on your feet as a criminal lawyer. So you go into court, you've got a strategy, you've got a plan, a curveball gets thrown at you, a witness might disclose some evidence that you never anticipated coming. Although again, a good lawyer always thinks about what a witness might say. You might get a curveball thrown by the bench. So again, how do you think quickly on your feet? How do you improvise? And how do you got to be impromptu? So that requires a high level of creativity as well. And definitely with my events, a lot of creativity. I'd even go to the length of styling the events and curating speakers, and a lot of creativity there. But it's funny because you meet a lot of criminal lawyers or even judges and magistrates, and a lot of them do have a creative background. A lot of them are in music, they're in bands. Some of them are artists. It must be something there, that brain of ours, that we're driven by that creative side. So yep, good pickup.
No, I think because bizarrely, it was a few years ago now. I don't know what prompted me to do it, but I was on the radio one time because there was a guy that was struggling because he was a wig maker. He was a wig designer, right? And he wanted a different career path, and he was really struggling because who the hell would want a wig designer in a career? And I'm like, if you take the skills that come from being a wig designer, the attention to detail, the meticulous nature of having each hair in the right place, blah, blah, you don't think that that's going to be valuable in a whole bunch of industries? Like, wow, all you got to do is, and it sort of comes back to really understanding and owning your reason for existence, right? Your reason for being. Because as soon as you understand that, and this is what I'm getting loud and clear from you, which is so serendipitous in its timing for me as well. Once you have a clear understanding as to who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, you could pretty much direct that cannon at wherever, right? And fire it off, and you'd be away. Like, I mean,
And the skills as well. Like you just sorry, cut you off. And you mentioned earlier the wig maker and his skills. It's true. Like when I studied fashion, they taught you about trend forecasting, how to use what's going on in the world to anticipate what the world will want from fashion. So, for example, if there's war, politics, environmental factors, where are we going with fashion? Do we want more sustainability? Do we want to focus on neutrals? With COVID, we saw a lot of yellows come out in fashion because everyone wanted positivity, and yellow being a symbol of joy and radiance. So they anticipated that. And I apply that tool, that skill as a lawyer or even as a businesswoman. I do forecast, okay, what is the world going to want? What are they going to look out for more from lawyers? What are they needing? With COVID, for example, I knew that there'd be more hand-holding needed, that family violence would become an issue, people navigating tech and becoming a bit more innovative, especially boys in the delivery services. So that's a tool that I took away from that fashion. So I think what you mentioned then, the wig maker, absolutely. I imagine that attention to detail is a big thing for that person. So that would be a brilliant skill to then use to deliver or achieve the greater purpose that they have.
now I want to take a little bit of a different turn. I want to do a bit of a 90-degree on this, because I think that first message, team, for your notes is really, really loud and clear. And what Lauren does and what Lauren represents is someone that really understands their reason for being, right? Really understands it. And as a result of understanding what her reason for being, she's able to use that in a bunch of different ways that allows her to be as effective as she possibly could be in each way, which is awesome, which is absolutely incredible. And obviously for her kids, I mean, even as a parent, it's obvious that she has this propensity to want to ensure, as we all do, but she wants to make sure, like as you heard from her when she was talking about purpose and what have you, she wants to make sure that her kids have got as good an education as they can possibly get. She wants to make sure that there is equality in the world in order for her kids to be able to rock and roll irrespective of gender or any of that sort of carry on, right? So it's there. That's the message that you need to hear from this first bit of this podcast, loud and clear. Now, Lauren, I want to take a little bit of a different sort of turn now, because you mentioned there that a little bit earlier that people aren't bad. It's just that they do bad things, right? Now, the timing of this is immaculate, because I had my car nicked from my driveway just last week, which was wonderful. And look, worst things can happen.
Did they locate it?
Yes, thankfully. It was hilarious, because I discovered on the app that I could track it, but I also discovered that I had a remote horn and remote lights and remote aircon. So I became the biggest pain in the ass victim known to man as I was remote tooting the horn as it was driving down Princess Freeway. They must have looked like complete idiots. It was so funny. Anyway, so by the by, now I've obviously been speaking to numerous police officers over the course of the week and doing all the bits and bobs and speaking to other people about it. And the first thing that comes out of their mouths is, "Oh, these damn kids. Oh, these damn kids." Right. And I've sort of had a bit of a odd reaction to this single event, in the sense of, and I don't know whether it's because of the fact that I'm a dad, I'm not sure. But I look at it as, it's not the kids that I'm concerned about. It's the environment that led them to feel that this is what they needed to do that worries me. Right. And it sort of ties in with what you're saying about not bad people, but bad things. But I wanted to ask you, just based on this, has there been a moment where you've doubted that. I mean, you obviously can't go into specifics, but you deal with some fairly hefty stuff, I would have thought. And surely there would have been moments where you've gone, this person is just pure, like, wow. Or is it always something that you are absolutely one-eyed on because this person might have had the shittest childhood known to man or something along those lines?
I think I'll have that reaction to certain conduct or things they do that definitely I've seen, I represent people in a lot of serious offending, homicides, sexual offending, very serious offending. And of course, there's been times where I go, wow, how could anyone ever do that? It's terrible. But it's the conduct that alarms me, not necessarily the person. And because the more serious the crime, the more serious the psychological conditions, I guess, my clients have. So people that commit very, very violent, bad crimes, there's several of them that suffer from various personality disorders. Personality disorders don't just come out of nowhere. The more serious ones, usually, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I've worked with enough clients and seen enough reports and spoken to enough psychologists to know that very serious psychological conditions are usually born out of a very traumatic, abusive childhood, or it can be chemical, hormonal, genetic, sort of like that nurture-nature argument. But there's something there. There's an underlying condition that is so serious it must be treated. And sometimes it can't be. Sometimes it's years and years of therapy and supervision, and this person, unfortunately, just can't overcome it. I had a client that had serious schizophrenia, and no amount of medication or supervision could stop him from having the hallucinations that he was having. And the hallucinations were causing him to do some bad things. But when the medication was working for him, he was actually a really nice person to talk to. We had good conversations, and he was very remorseful for what he'd done. But then it was once the illness got the better of him again that he'd become what other people might describe as a monster. So I maybe I am one-eyed on the fact that I don't believe there's anyone evil out there. I just feel that people need the right support, and maybe sometimes that support's still not there or hasn't been created, whether it's medically or therapeutically. But, we talk about youth crime, very passionate about that. The studies have shown that people don't develop a full mind till they're 25. They don't actually have the true capability to understand the difference between right and wrong, or what constitutes a crime as opposed to a wrongdoing, until they're 25. So even if they're just kids that come from a good background and had everything given to them, that life of privilege, it comes down to immaturity a lot of the times, the things they do. Sometimes it's a case of loyalty in that, especially with these supposed gangs that we're seeing out there now. I say supposed because I know it's a big thing in the media at the moment, but there are kids that get together in groups or gangs and they commit these crimes together. A lot of it's spurred on by this false sense of loyalty or belonging, this need to want to win over these people and mates and, have camaraderie. Or it can be, again, from disadvantage or immaturity, or just lack of education. So, the good thing in our system, even around Australia, is that with children, with youth crime, we do focus on their rehabilitation and trying to reprogram, I guess, their way of thinking. So if we could just focus on that rather than the punishment side of things, and just focus on educating them as to what is wrong and right and what is a crime, not to do it again, we'll see some better outcomes rather than this tough on crime concept that's being revived again, especially election time.
Yeah, it's kind of like you always hear it. You always hear this debate and this conversation around pets, right? You always hear this debate around dogs, for example, and dog breeds. How you get really nasty dog breeds, apparently, but you see lots of examples of this particular breed of whatever that's been raised absolutely fine, and then pure like dog lovers will say it's not the dog, it's not the breed, it's the human, it's the behavior, it's the way that they're brought up. And I mean, it's almost like you don't, and you don't want to talk about it from a position of privilege, but then at the same time, we need to understand that we do live in a privileged society, like, right? And there's lots of people that don't. And so we need to understand that to a greater degree. And it really, I'm trying not to get too crusaderish about this, right? But it 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 becomes impossible to resolve that with the greater level of anxiety and the greater level of angst towards a particular thing. Now, in that morning, the police officer said to me that my car was the 10th car that day, and this was at like 20 to 10 in the morning, right? And so I'm like, well, geez, they've been busy. At least, I mean,
Very brave, or bold doing it that time of the day.
well, look, mine was overnight. I didn't realize, but this was like the 10th car that they've been reported from the overnight, right? And it just makes me feel that if you as a beacon of hope, and if people like us are in these sorts of conversations and positions and whatnot, then in your opinion, like, what are the sort of thing? And like, I'm not talking about specifically about criminals necessarily, but in your purpose as a beacon of hope for people, what are the sort of things that you would like to see happen by humanity to a greater extent, right? And I know this sounds like an awkward question, but a really cool example of this was where it was literally this morning when I had a guy that I used to do a bit of training with. He's over in South Australia, and he called me out of the blue just to compliment me. He called me out of the blue. He didn't want anything. He just called me out of the blue to say that he watched a couple of auctions on the weekend and thought that I'd hit a new level. I was like, fuck, I wish more people would. We as humans need to do that shit way more often. Like, he inspired me by calling me just to tell me that on his
I
way.
love that. I wish there was more of that too. Definitely.
You know what I mean? But what else do you think us as humans can do to really try? Because there's so much divisive activity and talk and noise that goes on in the world, right? And then you don't need to talk about wars. You can talk about genders. You can talk about feminism, toxic masculinity. You name it. It's getting more and more divisive. As someone that is a beacon of hope, what do you think humans can do, or what do you think humans could improve on in order to become less divisive?
Thank you for calling me Beacon of Hope, by the way. I sometimes, that's interesting. I never thought of myself that way, but thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's a lovely compliment. I've never had that before, so it's beautiful. Thank you. Well, you know what? Maybe what you've just done now is you've elevated my spirits by being. I find human nature, we tend to be on guard and be in that, for some reason, especially in Australia, we're not that liberal with our compliments. So the fact that you've even given a lovely compliment like that, and the fact that it made me a little uneasy, makes me think that we're just not that used to getting so much recognition and praise as human beings, are we? I think, why is it that we're more concerned about negative feedback or criticism rather than being receptive and expecting praise and recognition? So humans, I mean, look, this is, it's ingrained in us, I think, as the species we are, that, you know, we've got that flight or fight mentality, and therefore we're very protective of our own, and we'll always be on guard. And, you know, there's the whole thing going on with adrenal glands and everything that gets elevated when we're fearful. So from my perspective, I think while you know, crime is a scary thing. It is scary to have your car taken and you feel violated, and, you know, you don't know what they've done with your car, and you don't know if they'll come back. It's scary. So when you're in that state of fear, how can you, even if you're a direct victim or not, how can you then see crime as something that we should be a bit more, I guess, kind around the way we see it needing to be dealt with? I had a conversation with my sister yesterday about an eye for an eye when it comes to crime. So there was a case I was involved in not long ago, and it was in the news, and without breaching confidentiality, it was it was a very serious case, and the my client got an outcome that the victim's family sees very lenient and are petitioning for an appeal. I said to my sister, it's amazing that people still living by this eye for an eye philosophy or belief where my client did do something bad, but why are we now wanting something bad to happen to him too? It's sort of almost it's always hypocritical in that we didn't want anything bad to happen to anyone, but here we are now wishing bad on him. We're sort of like perpetuating the cycle there of wrongdoing. And my sister said, yeah, and she's not a criminal lawyer. So she said, but if something happened to my family, God forbid, I'd want something bad to happen to them too. So you when you're generally driven by or trying to prevent danger, so you're driven by this, how do I put this? As humans, we anticipate danger or we want to protect against danger. So that's, we're in fear of any kind of danger out there. So we want to do what's best to avoid that danger. So that's that, flight or fight again. How are we then meant to go, well, is there another way to prevent danger and protect ourselves? And I don't know. I think as humans, I don't think we can all go, well, you know what, let's deal with it this way. We're always going to be trying to protect ourselves. Don't know if I've answered your question, Andy, but
No, you have. No, you have. You have. One thing I wanted to ask though, as a follow up to that, because it's this is almost going down a faith path, right? And faith can come in many forms, and this whole topic of faith has just been popping up a bit more recently in a few more recent episodes. Are you a religious person?
yeah, I'm Christian and I am spiritual. Like I believe in having faith. I do. I believe in trusting that there's a greater good looking after you. So whatever that greater good is, as a Christian, obviously it's God. And I believe in God, but I also think there's sort of a greater energy, whether it's God or something else that's looking after us. I know that when I've hit dark times, I rely on that. I think, you know what, I'm going to get through this. I'm being steered in a different direction for the better. That's how I keep myself optimistic and resilient. Yeah, so faith for me plays a big part. I always am grateful for what I have. I do celebrate the successes in my life because I feel that then naturally evolves or turns into more success. And I'm always thankful because I think it's really important to be thankful. And when you do get hit with challenges, no matter how great or small, I know, again, it's corny to see them as lessons, but they just help you redirect and do something differently.
Mm. I'm really interested by this whole faith thing. I think, and like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be religious. It can just be a faith in the fact that your purpose is clearly defined, right? It could be a faith in your value set being a firm moral compass. For the faith could be in your moral compass, right? You've got faith that because you do right by people, that eventually they will do right by you. And there's a faith required in that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, science has a faith before it becomes a fact, right? Someone believes that something to be true, or something that a chemical reaction was, I believe that this works, and then they go on trying to prove it, right? But until they prove it, it's just faith. It's just a guess, like anything.
And it's the perseverance too. They persevere with their tests and
100%.
experiments till they get what they need to achieve.
100%. And that, again, it all boils down to the strength of belief in your own purpose and your own reason for being. I'll tell you what, I could talk to you for yonks, but you've got to go. You got to go look after some people by the looks of it. So I'm going to let you crack on. Before I let you go, though, Lauren, and you've been a wonderful chat. Before I let you go, one last question we always ask our guests, which is, as you pursue your next version of success, whatever that may look like, we were always looking at working on things. There's always things that we know we need to improve. What is the one thing in the life of Lauren that you would desperately like to improve?
I think it'd be great to align myself with more supporters or people that are on this part of my journey. And again, corny, but what I found is as you reach certain milestones in life or achieve certain successes, sometimes certain people drop off from life, or some of them challenge you, and sometimes it's important to find or connect with people that are aligned with your vision and where you're at in your journey, and they are your true supporters. So they might still challenge you because, again, it's, you don't want to live in this state of oblivion. You need people to open your eyes to things as well. But having true cheerleaders, true supporters, I've heard along the way how being at the top can be quite lonely. And I have found that once I became a business owner, that it does become lonely because you're suddenly in charge of everyone. You're everyone's scary boss, or so it's, or you're someone's competitor, which is a big thing. So I think it's important that even as competitors and as friends, that we look out for each other and find the right people that are willing to celebrate your wins and support you and guide you for the better. And likewise, you're able to give back to them too. And I think it's mutual. It's, we live in a world now where there's so much opportunism as well. So it's just important to find people that they want to take, but they also want to give. And they're at that part of your journey where you're at as well, and can help you to grow and evolve and do better.
I love that. Improving your network and improve your net worth in every single facet of your life. I love that. You're the first person that's actually said that.
Well, I love that little pitch you just put down. That's a great way of summarizing it. Improve your network, improve your net worth. That's good. It's true.
You can keep that one. Lauren Cassimatis, thank you so much for having us on the show. Thank you for being so honest and upfront. You truly do walk the talk, as they say, with regards to your purpose and who you are and whatnot. And believe that you are definitely a beacon of hope that more people can gravitate towards, for sure. Team, I could talk to this chick for ages. And I'm sure
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. And I'll hear more about your spiritual beliefs. We might do that another time.
But look, team, make sure that you listen to a couple of things and just read between the lines on what Lauren's been saying here, because it is really about understanding truly what your purpose is, your reason for being. And if you have got certain skills and you're not quite satisfied with where your life's going, just to have a look and open your eyes to where your skills can be transferred to other things, because undoubtedly Lauren's creativity is what has absolutely helped guide her towards being tremendously successful in the field that she is in. That is very much, in many cases, black and white. But then when you're dealing with humans, there's always going to be a bit of gray. So that's where the creativity comes into play. And I think Lauren does a tremendous job of that. Team, thank you so much for joining us once again on the Success Curious podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, enjoy yourselves and each other, and we'll speak to you again on the next episode. Take care, team.